Dan, nice to have you. You know, we're all, or many people in the equity market certainly are awaiting concrete evidence of use of generative AI in the enterprise. And as somebody who's consulting with so many of these kinds of companies, what can you tell us in terms of the progress being made there that is giving rise to the forecast that I just shared?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we're working with our clients, we really are seeing these AI use cases starting to take hold. It definitely is nascent in some areas, but we're seeing a lot of growth. Some specific examples: customer service and call centers. Companies are seeing, north of 20–30% savings when they're really integrating AI through their overall workflows. Content creation and marketing, 30–50% savings. Obviously, software development, which is one of the early use cases, and then also back office use cases. So we're starting to see our clients really get real value out of integrating these new AI tools and workflows into their productions, but we're still in the early days. I think there is, a lot of growth still to come, both in the use of this technology, and then we're going to see this technology expand, which really leads to that billion-dollar market opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, again, call centers comes up a lot. It seems to be sort of a very, you can understand fairly simply why it would be so effective. But beyond that, when you get to more complex things in the enterprise, what's the learning curve? How is that adoption going to take place? And why do you believe, let's say, within 3 years or so, we're going to see a significant increase in that adoption?
Yeah. I think a lot of companies where they've started is a lot of experimentation, a lot of small pilots to really figure out how can they use these tools, where can they, drive new innovation for their own products or efficiencies in their own companies. And I think now we're at the stage where people are saying, how do I scale these kind of smaller use cases into bigger programs that are going to drive more effectiveness? So content creation, anything around like knowledge workers, like synthesizing all of the knowledge that's out there stored in lots of different places. So we are seeing companies really starting to use these differently. We're also seeing, if we think of that driver of that $1 billion, the first piece, which is what we've seen first, is with the hyperscalers, right? That big digital infrastructure, a lot of software to drive these large language models. I think there's two other big drivers we see in there. One is building out at the enterprise level. So this would be smaller models, a lot of times more open source with specific data sets that specific companies are looking to start to build in their own data centers. And the third is the enterprise software companies who are integrating AI into the products the companies are using all the time now already. So as that AI gets integrated into a lot more of the software products, that's going to drive even more need for the digital infrastructure behind AI, as well as AI software and services.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as though the technology is well as static. It's going to continue to improve. In fact, many of us wonder just how much it will. And I wonder, and when you think about the efficiencies that will be introduced, how much is ultimately going to mean replacing workers? I know that's a ways away, but it's certainly something that is on the minds of many.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that has been looked at a lot, is how is AI going to impact overall workplace, what jobs might it augment versus replace. And as we look at this, with a lot of technology innovations, it does change the way people do work for sure. And I think a lot of our clients and us as Bain are spending a lot of time training our people, upskilling people to use these new tools to make their own jobs more efficient. I think this AI, as you said, it's not static. It will create new jobs as well as people innovate on these new platforms and come up with new use cases, new form factors. So it's going to drive changes in how we do work for sure. And I think it's going to drive some new opportunities as well for talent, not only in the software space, but if we think of just how do you build out such a huge digital infrastructure that really touches innovation up and down the supply chain.
But